Brent Cates has a question. He says, Bill, I feel a profound sense of dread about our nation. You and me too, brother. Borders open every day since 9/11. President Godling slingshotting thousands of hostile poor people from backwards cultures who are either security risks as refugees or security risks as immigrants. Our leaders seem to be an ADD kid crying wolf about racism and climate change as the wargs gather to gnaw our bones, the words of the giant wolf creatures that they wrote in Lord of the Rings. Thoughts? Yeah, I do have thoughts. You're right, Brent. I have a sense of dread too. And the sense of dread goes to what Cheryl was talking about. I've never been afraid of Islam. I've never been afraid of it. I've never been afraid of Islam as a force because I know that if we got serious, we could defeat the warriors of Islam in a very short period of time. And it wouldn't be anything as bloody as World War II. But look, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of armed jihadis in this country now. And if this thing were ever to go all the way to full-on war, in other words, if we were to ever realize that they are in fact at war with us and we decided to go to war with them, these guys could go into malls and shoot up a lot of malls, and they could do a lot of damage before they were taken down by the police, the National Guard, and regular citizens. Thousands of jihadis with AK-47s running rampant in this country, trying to do as much damage as they could kill a lot of people. But if you look at the number of people that they could kill as a percentage of the population, it's nothing close to World War II. It's nothing close to, nothing approaches the Civil War. It's nothing like that. So I don't worry about them. I worry about these kids, I worry about a generation that cannot listen to Ben Shapiro talk for 10 minutes about income inequality, and that we're supposed to have these kids defend themselves against these jihadi kids who at age 6 are cutting human heads off and know how to field strip an AK-47. This is what we're going to put up against these guys? No, that's not going to happen. Somebody's going to wake up pretty soon, or something big is going to change. But you know what, Brent? It's like Cheryl said the world's upside down. I've often said, look, in an upside down world, if the world is upside down long enough, big pieces are going to break loose and they're going to move around. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing big pieces of things that have made sense when they're on the ground. They're up in the air now and they're starting to fall. And that's why the world feels like it's coming apart. Because the world has been inverted. It hasn't been inverted technologically, and it hasn't been inverted in any other sensible way. It's been inverted morally. Moral inversion. That's what the left needs. They need moral inversion. For the left to succeed, they need the votes of criminals or the underclass. And therefore, for the left to succeed, they have to back policies that say that if a person comes into your bedroom at 4 o'clock in the morning with something in his hand and you shoot him, you go to jail, he sues you for thousands or millions of dollars. That's what the left needs in order to succeed, in order to get the votes they need from people who can't cope. So that is it. To me, that's inverted morality. If somebody comes into my window at 4 o'clock in the morning and I shoot them and I go to jail, and if they survive getting shot, they get to sue me for benefits, and I have to spend the rest of my life paying for them because they were in my bedroom trying to either shoot, murder, rape, or attack me in whatever form they want to. The world is upside down. In a sane world, somebody comes through my window at 4 o'clock in the morning and I shoot them and I kill them. In a sane world, people would say, well, if that guy didn't want to get shot, maybe he shouldn't have been inside the guy's bedroom at 4 o'clock in the morning, right? That's sensible, logical, moral, clear, decent. That's Texas. That's the West. That's a world without sophistry and lawyers. It's a world where if somebody stole your horse, you would hang that person. You'd have the sheriff hang that person, and horse thief was hanged because by taking a man's horse, you weren't just stealing his property. It's not like you ran out of there with his television. It's not like you stole his book. You didn't steal his entertainment. In the Old West, if you stole a guy's horse, you stole not only his livelihood, you may have taken his life. He may need that horse to plow his field, or else he starves to death. He may need that horse to get to supplies in town, or else he starves to death. He may need that horse to ride out and fight Indians, or else he starves to death. You basically, by stealing his horse, you've taken his life. Simple. But the world is upside down, and they need it to be upside down. But Brent, here's the thing. The world can't stay upside down forever. And the thing I've been getting a sense of since the end of this summer, it's not like I've been sitting on this for years and years and years. With this Muslim invasion of Europe and the climate change stuff and all the rest of it, I get such a sense now. I get such a sense that not just the American population, but everybody in the West has had enough of being told to believe things that their own eyes tell them are not true. Period. Full stop. They have had enough of being told to believe in things that their own eyes tell them are not true. Their willingness to go along with these top-down things like the greatest threat to our civilization is global warming. They'll agree to that in public, and some of them will agree to it at the water cooler, and some of them will preach to their neighbors to show just how morally advanced they are. Stefan used a term called pathological altruism. They actually get a dopamine rush out of acting virtuous when they're not. And so most of the country is waking up. Some of them will never wake up. Some of them would rather die than wake up. But I get the sense that this is no longer, I think we're past peak political correctness, and I no longer feel like my mission is to educate people about things that they already know to be true. I think moving forward, my mission is to say, I know it's not true, you know it's not true, it's okay to say it's not true. It's okay to say it. It's okay to say that Barack Obama's not a very bright guy. He's certainly one of the laziest presidents we've ever had. How can you say that about a black president? Because it's true. Because it's true. That's why I can say it. Because it's true. He's lazy and he's not very bright. How can you say he's not very bright? Let's see his school grades. Let's see his records. You want to know whether I'm a bright guy or not? You can look at my school records and you can look at what I wrote. Let's see his records. Well, those are sealed. Why would they seal his records if he got nothing but A's and B's? If he is, in fact, the smartest guy who ever went to any of these schools, this brilliant, intellectually brilliant man, why would you seal his records? Why would you not release them? If he is, in fact, so much smarter than George W. Bush, wouldn't you be putting his records, his academic records, on the front page of every newspaper? I've said this before on this show, but I used to be genuinely puzzled at how, for the first time in history, when Barack Obama was made the president of the Harvard Law Review, he was the first president of the Harvard Law Review not to review any books. And I thought, man, I just don't know. How did they pull that off? How did they pull that off with regards to the rest of the faculty? How did they pull that off with regards to the fundraising? We have a president of the Law Review who's not writing any law reviews. I mean, how did they pull that off? And then I realized, like a thunderbolt, of course he wrote law reviews. Of course he did. He doesn't become president of the Harvard Law Review and not write any law reviews. But they selected him before they read them, you see. And when he started producing these law reviews, 106 IQ can get you a sense that, gee, you're really smart if you're surrounded by people who have an 80 IQ. But when you go to Harvard Law and you're surrounded by people who have IQs of 130 or 140, all of a sudden the 108 doesn't seem so impressive. As a matter of fact, it is appalling. And I think he wrote at least 1 or 2 or 3 law reviews, and they were reviewed by the Harvard Law Review and the faculty and the rest of the students, and they simply said, this is unprintable. This is unprintable. If we print this, it will be evidence of the fact that the only reason we selected this guy because he's good-looking and black. That's why his records haven't been released, and that's why the president of the Harvard Law Review didn't publish any law reviews, because they were unpublishable. There's nothing else that makes sense. There's no other explanation that makes sense. If his law reviews had been brilliant, we would have heard nothing but how brilliant they are, and we could all read them, and Scalia would look at them and go, I never really considered that before. That's a profound insight. If he'd written brilliant law reviews, they'd be shoved down our throat. If he'd gotten excellent grades, that would be shoved down our throat. But it's not. It's kept secret from us. We're not allowed to know about them. And you don't hire the president of Harvard Law to not write law reviews. Of course he wrote them. They were unreadable. They were unprintable. To print them would be to admit that he's an affirmative action law review president, in the same way that he's an affirmative action president. And this is why I hate affirmative action. I don't hate affirmative action because it makes black people president. I hate affirmative action because it allows people who would never, ever have the qualifications to be president to become president. And what that means is there are millions, literally millions, of black Americans who would make a far, 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 far better president than this joke. But because of this comedy club with Harvard and Yale and all the rest of it, those people didn't get a chance to be America's first black president. Millions of people working in this country would have been a better first black president than this man. Millions of them would have been a much better first black president, but they didn't get the chance to be the first black president of America because this charlatan with 106 IQ who spent his entire childhood sitting on the beach smoking doobies and laughing at things and thanking the Choom Gang stole their position, stole their history, stole it away. So there you go. Sarge 58 wants to go, is his IQ really that low? Is it verifiable? Look, I'm not administering IQ test to Barack Obama, but I do know this. I've heard him speak off a teleprompter. I don't find him to be bright. The people that know him admit that he doesn't read anything. What does he do with his spare time? I can tell you what I do with my spare time. I read a lot in my spare time. I'm addicted to being educated. I can't not learn things. I cannot sit still without reading something. I just can't. So I would love to have a one-on-one conversation with Barack Obama that lasted 24 hours, and I would like to get random questions from the audience of this nature. Describe to me, Mr. President, what you would see if you were to sit in this chair and then suddenly just continue to go straight up into the air. Just continue to go straight up into the air. Describe to me what you would see. He couldn't answer that question. I could. I'd see, well, first of all, as we got through the roof, we'd be able to look down on the top of the building. And as we got higher and higher and higher, we'd be able to see the outlines of the city. He could probably get that far. And then we'd begin to see the outlines of the country. And after a while, we'd be able to see all of the earth. And as we continued to pull higher, we would see much further away than we expect, much further away than we expect. We'd see the orbit of the moon. As we continue our upward journey into space, you'll never be able to see the orbits, and you'll never be able to see the planets because they're so microscopically small compared to the star. But as you rose higher, you would be able to at least theoretically see the orbits of Venus, and then you'd see the orbit of Mars and Mercury. Here's the sun. As you go higher and higher, here comes Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. And as we continue to pull out, we can begin to see the planetoids that are the dwarf bodies that orbit outside there. And we go further and further, and now we're in the Oort comet cloud, which consists of hundreds of millions of little dirty ice snowballs that are circling around our solar system. And as we continue out, there is now this enormous vacuum of space. There's really just nothing forever. And as we continue and continue and continue, finally 4.5 light years away, in a solar system where the Earth is 8 minutes light away from the sun, we start to see the first star, which is Alpha Centauri. It's a triple star system consisting of Alpha Centauri A, which is a yellow G-type star, Alpha Centauri B, which is a K-type star, a little warmer, a little smaller than Alpha Centauri A, and the closest star at the moment, Proxima, which is a red dwarf, which actually orbits the A and B team, and at this moment is slightly closer to us, so Proxima Centauri technically is the nearest star. And as we continue our journey up, we begin to see, we're accelerating all the time, by the way, because a linear journey up means it would take us 4 years to get to the nearest star. But as we continue to accelerate as we go upward, we can now begin to see the stars of our local neighborhood. Oh, look, there's Sirius not too far away, 26 light years, I want to say, something like that. And as we get larger and larger and larger, we can start to see the shape of the galaxy. We realize there's spiral arms, and we're located in one of these arms of the galaxy. We're about 2/3 of the way from the center of the galaxy, which is about 100,000 light years across. Let's keep going higher and higher. Hey, look, there's two dwarf galaxies down there. One's called the smaller Magellanic Cloud. The other one's called the Little Magellanic Cloud. They're little irregular dwarf galaxies that orbit our Milky Way. Let's just keep on going. Let's keep on going. Oh, look, there's another giant spiral just like ours, barred spiral galaxy. It's Andromeda. I can tell that it's actually slightly larger than the Milky Way. It's the largest galaxy, and the Milky Way is the second. And here's M33 and Triangulum, that's third. And as we continue, and there's another huge void, and then all of our galaxies are in a little local group, which consists of, 25, 30, 40 galaxies. And then this group is part of a subgroup. Now there's hundreds of galaxies. And as we go as far as we can imagine, we see this spider web of mega clusters of galaxies that has a very, very interesting, exotic kind of look. And in the far distance, we can see the background radiation of the Big Bang. Your turn, Barack Obama. Your turn. Tell me what you would see. Tell me what you would see if we started moving down in the scale. Tell me what you would see. What would you see? You couldn't answer these questions. You couldn't answer any of these questions. Tell me about Moby Dick, Barack Obama. What is Moby Dick about? Well, it's about a guy who puts a harpoon in a whale. Yes, that's the plot of Moby Dick. But why is Moby Dick such a classic? Tell me about Moby Dick. What is Moby Dick about? What's it about? He couldn't tell you what it's about if he knows anything about it. It's about a guy who sticks a spear in a whale and chases it around the world. He couldn't get into... Barack Obama's not capable. I'm not saying he's not smart enough. He's just not educated enough. He couldn't talk about the idea of obsession and why he was named after the biblical character of Ahab. And he couldn't talk about losing your reason and sanity out of a sense of rage and hatred. He couldn't talk about sacrificing everything that you love in life because of the ego, because of the raw ego of Ahab, the simple raw ego of it, the narcissism of Moby Dick. Moby Dick is a story of narcissism. It's a story of a man who cannot let go of an injury that occurred to him a long, long time ago. He's going to ruin his life. He's going to ruin his ship. He's going to ruin the lives of everybody on board a ship. But he is going to achieve his ego goal, whether or not he takes the entire world to hell with him. And you hear language in Moby Dick like, I spit my last breath at thee, I circle the gates of hell at thee. Do you think Barack Obama has the intellectual depth to make that argument? I don't. Nothing he says has convinced me he has that kind of intellectual depth. Nothing he says. And when you listen to him speak off of a teleprompter, does he speak quickly? Does he speak with authority about different issues when he's off the teleprompter? What does he sound like? What did he sound like in Paris when he's off the teleprompter? Well, it's important that we maintain at all times a position that is not at odds with our common values. That's not who we are. Thanks for the insight, Nostradamus. You know, I don't know what his IQ is, but it's not. Do you think that he's got the IQ of Victor Davis Hanson? Do you think he's got the IQ of Rush Limbaugh? Do you think he's got the IQ of Ben Carson? Is 3 times smarter than Barack Obama. He's probably got triple his IQ. Do you actually think it's not even a question of IQ, although IQ is a lot of it? Barack Obama does not have the network of neurons to do the work that Ben Carson does. But the main reason that Barack Obama can't do what Ben Carson does on a daily basis is not because Barack Obama is not smart enough to do it, although he's not smart enough to do it. He's not motivated enough. He's too lazy. The idea of Barack Obama sitting down and reading books and taking tests and being graded and being rejected and staying at it and staying at it and staying at it for 20 years until he's developed enough skill in one area to be able to perform at the top 1% of any particular activity. Do you think he's got that kind of persistence to become a brain surgeon? Forget the intellect. Do you think Barack Obama has the work ethic to become a brain surgeon? No, he does not. He's a fraud. He's got a smile. He's got this. That's what he's got. That's what he's got. That. I got that too. Cost me about $15,000 over the space of a couple of years. Any other questions I can help you with? Idiot. He's not an idiot. An idiot is somebody with an IQ of 80. He's not an idiot. He's slightly smarter than average. Slightly smarter than average. I think he's about 106, 108, somewhere in that ballpark if I had to guess. Let's see.